Hello, welcome back to Modern Homestead Alaska and my Modern Homestead kitchen. We have some stuff that we are going to be working on today. But before I can get started with all of that, my family has plans this evening. One of our kids has a ball game, so I wanted to get dinner going. And the best part of this wood cook stove is it can cook low and slow all day long without running electricity and things like a crock pot or an Instant Pot. So let's get a roast on, and then you get to join me as we do some work in this modern kitchen. Welcome to Modern Homestead Alaska. We are Aaron and Jessica Milnes. We are building a modern homestead outside of Wasilla, Alaska, with the help of 3 of our children. Our second son, Caleb, our daughter, Cody Ann, and the youngest of our family, Wyatt, along with our 3 dogs, Tipper and Daisy, and the newest addition, Roberto. All right, so traditional roast, little bit of vegetable oil. I've preheated the pan just slightly. I have here a 4.3 pound, oh geez, now I gotta clean that, beef roast. And then I am just going to brown it with a little salt and pepper on each side. So this roast came pre-tied, so it's going to, good indication it's going to be a roast that falls apart. And I will salt and pepper the other side after I get it in the pan. You can take the time to brown all of the sides, and sometimes I do that, but I have to move on with my day. So I'm just gonna start adding to the roast what I wanted, or some things that I just had. So I had a shallot, or half of one left over, a bunch of garlic cloves, and a white onion. Because we're on Whole 30, I can do potatoes and carrots, but I'm actually going to wait until this afternoon when I'm getting ready to leave to go to Wyatt's game before I put the carrots and the potatoes in here, and then they'll be nice and cooked when I get home. I have a can of this fire roasted salsa style tomatoes. A bunch of juice from the vinegar in the pepperoncinis is amazing. So I have some beef bouillon. You have to make sure it's a sugar-free. And then some mushroom soup base. And then some spices that I like are a little bit of thyme, a little rosemary, and for me, I like a little bit of oregano. And you can do whatever you want. So, and then I'm just gonna rinse this can with some water. And it'll take one more can. I'll bring you back to check on that in a little while. To those of you that are new around here, my kitchen has just kind of been dismantled after the holidays and Christmas and all of those different things. The other deal is in January, I like to do a deep clean of the house, top to bottom, each room, each space, and then do maybe necessary repairs, touch up paint, all of those things. My kitchen is the space currently that is kind of making me crazy. However, the amount of work that goes into a homestead style kitchen is it's a lot, right? And so I had put it off until I really felt like doing it, and I do. I really feel like getting my kitchen tackled. So the shelves you see behind me, just about a year ago, my husband installed these as part of the building process of the house. And then the second or third video that we put up a year ago was this black surround here that goes around the wood cook stove. And those videos you can find in the archives in the video section of the channel if you're interested in any of them. So with all of that said, I keep a lot of jars out here, a lot of spices. Pardon me, I'm back. So in a homestead kitchen, what my point initially was to cook from scratch. To do those things requires a lot of different spices and things like that. I've done several videos on them, and it's just getting to the point now in the kitchen after the holidays, after everything, that not only does it need to be cleaned and then put back together for kind of my standard, what does my kitchen look like with the exceptions of fall and Christmas decorations. And then the other thing is I have a bunch of empty jars. And then the third thing that I'm kind of hoping to talk about, at least another thing, is over a year, I'm a big believer, we've built and moved so many times, it takes you time to know what is working and what is not working. Now, there are some, for instances, where you figure out right away in your kitchen, new kitchen, whatever, that isn't working. And those things are corrected immediately. However, over time, you kind of start going, well, does it make sense to have this over here instead of here? And my favorite part of moving things around and getting it cleaned out is making the kitchen always work better for myself and the family than it did before. And I think sometimes you just have to live with it and then eventually get to the point where you realize what is working, what is not, kind of some changes. Now, I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. As we do, I'll kind of go through the kitchen and share with you some of the things that I have in it, why they're in here, is it working, is it not working, all those different things. But first, let's get in to the very top shelf, get it cleaned up, and decide what do we actually need at the very tip top of this kitchen. I have my handy ladder. Someone sent me to get a new ladder, and I'm going to, when I can find one that maybe has a shelf or something on it that will work for it. And ladder safety that we learned is a good sturdy ladder, and this one is, and then shoes that are laced up and tied, so no Crocs or slip-ons anymore for me. But the first thing that I'm gonna do is take everything off of this top shelf, wipe it all down, and then clean the shelf. Now, I want to show you what maybe wasn't the best design, and we're living with it because I like the look of it, but I'm having to do more work than maybe I would have. This is from us cleaning out the wood cook stove or opening it or the ash or whatever, and this is just from since Christmas. So it does get really, really filthy having, sorry, there you go, open shelving like this, but it does clean up really easily. I'm using this new all-purpose cleaner that I got from Azure, and I am happy to report it cuts through the grease and the muck and all of that perfectly. It is amazing. I also try not to own things that I cannot wash, especially in the kitchen. So even these oil lamps and everything that is in there gets a little bit of soap and water hit to it, and everything cleans up really, really well. If you do it frequently, it doesn't build up the dust and the oil combination that can be really hard to clean in a kitchen. Putting the kitchen back together is fairly simple. The oil lamp I actually use, we have it for when power is out or those sort of things, and then you've actually seen me use it before when we had lost power for a few hours. And then I like the white with the Red Bull with Valentine's coming up and having kind of the break in color. These are some of my favorite dishes, and I like to keep them out so that I can use them when we are serving different things. And then these cute little copper pots I got at an antique store, and I need to find something to put in them. I love this wood cutting board. It was handmade here in Alaska, and I had gotten at the farmer's market with my mother. And then I just continue filling in the shelves with decorative items, but also like that's full of chocolates, but different things that we use, and also some decoration, because I do think part of wanting to enjoy or be in a kitchen that you love, it needs to be aesthetically pleasing to you in order to be a space, if you will, that you will go in, spend time, and enjoy yourself. I personally think just having that top simplistic is going to work really, really well for me. And the season that we're in and just moving through winter, if I end up with maybe some decorations or something cute to stick up there, I may do that. I am gonna move down to this shelf and then kind of show you a little bit of how I deal with these spices, what is in here, and doing some restocking while cleaning up the jars and dealing with all of that. I do like to clean even these shelves that I can reach everything on in sections. So I start by taking down all of the jars and this whole portion of the cabinet. I am going to then spray and clean all of it. This may sound funny, but while I'm doing this, believe it or not, I am just taking my time. I am enjoying myself and the cleaning process and being able to do this. And I really think that is where the heart should be in situations like this, where instead of being in a rush or angry or upset or, oh, why do I always have to get this done? I really felt like just so blessed to be in my kitchen and to be doing this. And I love this space. I designed it. Aaron helped me build it. Every single touch of it is from our hands. And so being able to put it all together really felt very special, calming and relaxing to start getting my kitchen back together. After clearing the jars off the shelf and wiping them, I use my new little rolly cart and I go and get the spices from the pantry. Now, we're gonna end up having to do that later, refill my entire working pantry that's upstairs here. But the working pantry is used to fill this pantry. So what's amazing, I'm gonna show you right now, is how the jar system works. Each half-gallon jar fills 2 of these. Now, generally, just the other day, I forget which one it was, but Aaron went in there and he refilled something for me from the half-gallon into 4 pints to a gallon, which means 2 of these are in each half-gallon, so on. And he had done some refill out here, which is a great help. But what we do generally is we wait for it to just become completely empty. But right now I'm really working slow and steady to get the whole kitchen back in order the way that I'm comfortable and the way that I want. So I want a good representation of what spices I need to order. So what big Azure spice order do I need to do this year? Azure is where I get my bulk spices for the most part. And so I just come along and we are just gonna refill each one. So this Rancher's Steak Rub, I don't know if it's called that with Azure. It's what the Morton or whatever, the original one that I always got was called. So that name just stuck. And so I go in here, then I use just a clean rag, dust it off, cap on, and it goes up here. Now, this back here is jalapeno salt that you and I made together in the Pantry challenge, and we have loved it so much it's almost gone. So what has to happen now is I need to get a label made that says jalapeno salt, and then I need to make this year, when we grow jalapenos, an entire half gallon worth, because we're gonna be out of this before that season even comes. So the ginger, I guess I could. I didn't bring it out here. So the Celtic salt, though, I don't have any more of that. I just kind of switch my salt out, which is why that's written on there as opposed to having a label. So now we have the everything but the bagel. And we have our half gallon. Now some of these are sealed. And by that, I mean, I have a thing that goes on the sealer that does like plastic bags and those sort of things. And I have a jar sealer. By sealing these jars and getting the air out of them, they last so much longer, the spices do, than what it normally would last, the expiration and so on, just by keeping the air out. So what I will do when you and I work on the big pantry restock, we will go through and seal each one of these jars again. And then what I like to do, this is just totally up to you, is I like to organize the spices. The front ones are the ones that I grab on the daily, like regular every single day basis. And then the further back it is, I'm gonna use that on a weekly basis, and that's why it's out here. And that's my rule of thumb. I keep these massive quantities of spices based on what I use on the weekly basis. And then the further forward it is more often. So we are now out of black pepper. So this jar will stay in here because I'm actually gonna wash and dry that jar completely before we fill it back up with black pepper. Let's see. The funny part is I have onion powder over here. It doesn't actually go over, well, it can move back over here. Onion and garlic powder, I go through phases where I use it a lot and then don't use it as much. But on Whole30, not using a lot of other spice mixes that have any sugar or cornstarch or anything like that in them, I tend to use a lot more garlic and onion powder. This probably is what Aaron refilled. And you were here, you can look back at the video, you were here when we filled the pepper, the red pepper flakes. So if you have a question, does she really use that amount of spices in a year? I really do use this amount of spices. And honestly, it's not even been a year that we did this. I always try to think of everything like, well, my girlfriend Amanda and I did it, and I had the wood cook stove, and so obviously it was just over a year ago, and then we've already used an entire ½ gallon worth of red pepper flakes. So I have a clean rag, I don't know if I mentioned that, and I just dust all of it off so we're not overly mixing the spices together. I encourage you, if you're not yet, to just go ahead and join me for the rest of this video as we finish cleaning the kitchen and restocking everything, just taking our time and doing a simple project together. I enjoy getting those messages from you guys that you put on one of my videos and you joined me in the kitchen and you worked alongside of me on whatever project it was that you're working on. And I really love the idea of that, and I thought of so many of you today while I was recording this and just really enjoying myself throughout it all. Right here in this open space, I always keep my teas. I had gotten these cute, kind of, and I wanted to go back to it, but I really, really like this picture being out. So I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna end up doing, but I like the teas in here better. But I have some apple ciders, different kinds of teas. So I'm gonna switch that out and get that right here. And then just keep washing everything as we go. This, I'm gonna go back to this. I like the copper in the kitchen, but Aaron actually won this in a competition, as most of the copper that looks like this, he won in some way, shape, or form. So I like to keep some potatoes in the kitchen, some onions, I have some shallots and some garlic, and then I have some in storage that is a little bit being kept cold, and then I just restock it into here. So obviously this needs cleaned and restocked, but I'm gonna switch back to this and then adjust the plates and bowls. All right, I'm gonna get this last chunk of this shelf done, restocked, refilled, and then have myself a little lunch break. and then continue on, and we'll just see where we make it to before we have to go. But I wanted to talk a little bit to you. Here, let me move you closer. All right, maybe that's better. So what I was going to kind of share with you a little, and one of the thoughts that I had that went into the design of the kitchen and that is working really well for the Homestead, is that it has to be functioning. Everything has to have a place and a purpose for in the kitchen. Now, of course, oh, love these. I got these as in my P.O. box. So those need to go in the pantry. But the point I was making is when I go through and decide what isn't working in the kitchen, it is truly a matter of function. Like, how quickly can I get food from ingredients to the table? And yes, of course, like, I enjoy being in my kitchen. I enjoy spending time in here and developing and making things that are new or different, things that take a long time and a lot of attention to detail. But what I also like about the kitchen and the design that is working is that it functions really well and really quickly. And you wouldn't necessarily guess that with the design is a little bit odd, if we're being honest, with the great big open shelves and just kind of that rustic vibe, and everything gets dirty, and you have the wood cook stove, and you have all of that going on. But what's amazing to me about how this kitchen has worked for us for just over a year now is that, oh, FYI, I'm setting these aside. We're gonna refill those as well, but they're in gallons or this one's supposed to be apple cider vinegar, and that's in a 5-gallon jug, so that'll take us a minute. But my point that I was making, that I have realized over this last year of having this kitchen, is it is amazing. The open concept of everything just being front and forward and easy for me to grab. I am not opening like a spice cabinet that I'm having to dig through that spice cabinet to find that one that's way in the back. That isn't how this kitchen operates. In fact, it operates very efficiently and very, very quickly, which amazes me. So I just wanted to kind of share that a little bit, that if you have a kitchen and you're like, this doesn't work for me, and you want to do something wild or crazy, you want to take off your cabinet doors or do something to make your kitchen function better for you, make it easier for you to stay on top of things, make it more efficient to get food from ingredients to the table, do whatever wild thing pops in your head that you're like, that is going to work better for me to do it that way. See, garlic powder completely gone. So we need to refill all of these. Now look at that. Rosemary, I use this all the time, but I don't use that much of it. Girl, yeah, you don't use a large quantity of it, I guess I should say, when you do use it. So I did want to say the new apron that I'm wearing, I got in my P.O. box, and it was such a lovely gift, and I can't wait to show you what else came with it. but the quality of it is amazing, and I am so impressed. It held up to all of the spills I get all over it later, but I thought, what a pretty apron. It just matches the colors of my kitchen and my house, and I really, really appreciated the gift. This side of my pantry here, believe it or not, these are ones that I use on a regular basis, but not necessarily even a daily or weekly basis, but very, very often. And I want to be able to grab them quickly. The reason they're on this side of the kitchen as opposed to where those other spices are is I'm supposed to use the wood cook stove. The wood cook stove is what heats our house, and then it's a free source, I guess, if you will, for cooking, and I don't have to, it can just do double duty, if you will. So I need to continue learning, and I've done more and more and gotten better and better and better at using the wood cook stove a lot more frequently than I was originally. Of course, in the very beginning, you're super excited about something like that, so you'll use it a lot. But we have to haul propane to our house. So the less propane that we use, the better off we are. We are already burning the wood because that's how we heat our house, and so I should be using the wood first. I thought I would show you really quick my Whole30 lunch. I got a red bell pepper, and I just sliced it up and then topped it with a tuna salad that I made earlier that is tuna, Whole30 mayonnaise, salt and pepper, a little bit of mustard, some onion, and some celery, just really, really simple. And then I'm gonna top that with tomatoes, spinach, avocado, have some pepperoncinis on the side, and just kind of show you that kind of eating this way, I'm not a dietitian or any of that. I'm just trying to do better for myself. But what I've realized that a lot of times people are like starving themselves on plans like this because they're trying to be like calorie deficient. But with Whole30, it's not about that. Look at it. And I'm gonna cut it. I'll use like this will be a fork and knife situation here, but a bunch of spinach and then half of this avocado. Let's see, bueno. Chopper. It's kind of a little dark, but I don't mind. Anyway, then a couple of these. And that is like a huge lunch. It is a small plate, but a huge lunch with lots of fiber and all the good things. And this will literally keep me going until it is time for dinner. We are gonna get back to the kitchen. Oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I feel so much better. I was so hungry, and that is kind of what happens on a plan like this as you're eating kind of those lean proteins, fruits and vegetables, and you just kind of get to the point of starving. And we find it bizarre, maybe it's not that bizarre, but it's crazy that you lose weight and you're just like hungry and you can eat these like big quantities of food, and it is all about what you're putting in your body. But I thought I would come over. Hopefully this is boiling. Oh, it is. Oh, nice. That smells good. I can smell the herbs. So our roast is just cooking away over here. I need to load this fire and then we're gonna get back to work. I don't know where to stand. And you know what, it's okay because someone's told me these windows would drive them crazy, but you guys, it is getting like so much more daylight increased every day. And I had explained all summer long that the sun just bounces along the treetops outside of those two great big windows in the winter time. And we would have never ever known to design the house like that. When we bought the house, it had the windows in and then it was just 2x4, 2x6, just a shell. And we had no clue what these long winters, these dark winters would be like. But above all, it just feels like just standing here, like just such an incredible blessing. You know what I mean? Like the sun is so bright on me, and it honestly, like sunshine itself can alter your mood. And it is just, my belly is full. My house is so super warm from the wood stove. We have dinner on it, and I'm just really feeling like I'm getting back to myself and just a little overcome my gratitude for this opportunity to get to live this life and share it with each and every one of you that have tuned in. So, sorry about the shadows, but I'm not sorry that the sun is just kind of just really starting to shine later and later, earlier and earlier, and it is such a beautiful thing. And it just happens to be that time of the day where I have to leave here in about an hour, and so we'll just finish out what we can for today's video, and I might pop an extra one in here doing the lower half, because I have never done the drawers or shown you what's in them in my kitchen. And I have had requests like, what is actually in your kitchen? So I thought I would kind of finish sharing this with you this week. So point is, these two here. So those of you that know, but those that don't, or you're new around here, this section of my kitchen, these two shelves, this countertop that has the KitchenAid on it, and then the set of drawers, these three drawers underneath, all of this is baking for me. Baking is such a big part of our life, and I think it's such a big part of any truly like a homestead kitchen ends up learning like some of the common threads. Okay, let's all just say these are common threads. You don't have to do these things to have a homestead kitchen. A common thread is baking, making your own breads and treats and granolas and all of these different kind of things. That has always been a passion of mine, and it's certainly a passion of my daughter's, to the point she is looking into some schools in other countries and here in the US for culinary purposes. So it's such a passion for us that I devoted this entire chunk to that in my kitchen. And it is the area of my kitchen that in my head, hold that thought. Sorry about that. Tipper doesn't normally bark. She's our little pit bull. And when she does bark like that, generally someone or something, a moose or something, is outside with her. And she was like on the porch staring off into the woods there. And we just bring them in because she would aggressively attempt to protect us from a moose, and the moose would win. So back to my thought process. was this area I have adjusted and moved around so many times. And here we find ourselves again deciding what is and isn't working well. So for my kitchen, and I thought my very last treat on the video was I just kind of breezed through the spices, and I thought the last clip that I would give you is we'll go through and we'll talk about what spices and those sort of things that I actually keep in my kitchen. And maybe you find some inspiration or go, there's no way, I hate that spice, whatever it is. I thought I would actually just tell you here in just a second what all is in here. So in the baking category though, on that note, up here are spices that are less used. They're in very, very small jars. Now, over Christmas and the holiday baking, nutmeg is used a lot. I'd like to switch to whole anyway, nutmeg is used a lot, but when you use nutmeg, you don't use a lot of it. Whereas when we refilled the great big half gallons into the quart size jars, we obviously use a lot more garlic salt and cumin and chili powder and so on. In the kitchen spices, so these spices go up top, we use a lot less of them, although we may use them as frequently. So this is some ground clove, some pumpkin pie spice, and so on. So I'm gonna pull all this down, clean like we normally do, and then discuss with you what kind of we keep up here in the baking section that is exposed for daily use in the kitchen. I would like to mention, the further we go from the wood cook stove, the less dusty, but the closer to this stove, the more greasy. So isn't that fun? Why is this even up here? So in my big pantry, I have a shelf and I keep the big overflow, or my working pantry size that I refill from is a quart. I don't keep a half gallon of clove because it's gonna lose so much of, I took them all in there with me so I could figure out what I needed. So anyway, it's going to take for me long enough to go through these spices, the allspice and the clove and so on, that it's silly for me to just, for looks wise, to buy such a massive amount. So these are allspice. And then espresso powder, I have some refill, but we need to just work through this because it's completely sealed. We're not gonna open that. Here's clove. Okay, so I didn't buy a refill of these coriander seeds because I don't use them very much. I have them in case a recipe calls for them, but I would not buy an azure size at all of that. I would just go to the store and maybe buy, they're in like kind of plastic deals where I find coriander with like the peppers, the red peppers and so on, kind of the Mexican or Hispanic influenced type of food. So this one's dill weed. I use a ton of this actually. And then everyone always forgets that this is out here and goes and gets the big one. Now, maybe dill isn't for baking so much, but when we do use it, we're talking like a quarter of a teaspoon. We don't use so much dill that I need a massive quantity of it either. Pumpkin pie spice. on Whole30 in your coffee, if you put something like a pumpkin pie spice or a cinnamon or whatever, it really can just take kind of that bitter edge off of it if you're someone that is used to kind of sweet coffees in the morning. And I am certainly someone that would prefer my coffee be sweet. So pumpkin pie spice, cinnamon. I even do, I'm not allowed chocolate on it that's sweetened, but unsweetened cocoa with the cocoa powder with some cinnamon is delicious, actually. So let's see, cayenne. So let's see what's up here. Pumpkin pie spice, the coriander seeds, the allspice seed, the whole allspice, I guess I should say, espresso powder, whole clove, ground clove, and then we have the dill weed, and now we have some cayenne. This is completely empty. Cayenne's another one that I use it frequently, but when I do, we're talking like a quarter or an eighth of a teaspoon, not tablespoons of it at a time. Let's see. Cinnamon sticks. This size doesn't hold the stick well, so that's not working. We need to figure something else out for those. Allspice. Dill seed. And you can see with the amount that I'm spilling why we clean from the top down. We don't want to be redoing this. This will let this completely go, and I don't store a big amount, but this is cream of tartar. And that's it. So if I need more cream of tartar, I'll just go get a little jar of it. Celery seed. This is a recent purchase for us, and we're seeing if we use that very often. And then nutmeg, we use quite a bit of this. And then whole cloves. Now the brown sugar, we are not going to refill because what brown sugar I have is sealed in a 5-gallon bucket. in order to keep the moisture in it. And so we need to use the rest of this before we refill that. But the powdered sugar, we can obviously refill. Powdered sugar is one of kind of a bulk sugar or flour, those sort of things that I don't actually store in bulk. We, throughout Christmas, haven't even used this entire bag. Now, there's that much left. And that is it. We don't make like a lot of icings or those sort of things. If we did, maybe I would store it. But one bag of that from like Costco is enough to last me for an entire year. So that is one of the things that you keep in mind when you're doing this, is only store in bulk what you actually use. Now, let me get this put up here. While I take these jars back, Cody did some grocery shopping for me and set these out, and I need to just put these back in the pantry while I'm on this shelf. We have done it. We made it to the final shelf. So we're gonna pull all of this down. Well, I'm gonna bet you can see a pattern now. If it's in this size jar out here, it's stored in a half-gallon size jar in the working or overflow, whatever you want to call that pantry. This section got hit hard November and December, and so let's just get to pulling it back together. These are like Andes mints, like a mint chocolate. If you melt these with a little bit of coconut oil and you dip Ritz crackers in them, they actually taste like Girl Scout cookies. So that's such a great cookie to make. Dark chocolate. Okay, so sometimes the chips get icky like this. I'm gonna leave these in here, but I'm going to tell Cody that for no reason we need to do something with those dark chips. Those are semi-sweet. Oh, here, we have plenty. We're completely out of semi-sweet. Honestly, even though I have some half-gallon jars of semi-sweet chips, I actually have a 2-gallon bucket that has the huge amounts of them from Costco. Let me see. These I've been looking for and I can't find. These are dark chocolate chunks, and I've been able to get them at the store, and then all of a sudden I couldn't. Hold that thought. I need to start a grocery list. So anything I have going on here, we might as well go to our notes, city shopping, dark chocolate chunks. And then anything else I find in the kitchen or the pantry that we need a refill of. This is gonna be one of those deals. All right, it is what it is. And it could just be, some of this is the manufacturer or the brand, like what brand I can get and where. Because a lot of times on like chips and stuff like this, I'm gonna buy the whatever off-brand the store has. I'm not going to buy like Nestle. That's great. We should have one more. We should have some white. So herein lies what could have happened and why we may have had 2 semi-sweets, and now we have no white chips. But a lot of the cookies Cody makes have white chips in them, so I know that we normally have a big jar. Okay, so those are all of our baking chips. What other section? So table salt, this is super old. Salt, thankfully, doesn't go bad, but sometimes the recipe calls for it. I, however, choose to use like kosher or some other kind of salt instead, generally. But I do keep that in case it specifically calls for it. So baking powder. Only store as much baking powder as what you're going to use. So maybe not a whole ½ gallon if you don't do a lot of baking. Oh my gosh. Well, that is an unfortunate mess. And that needs to get washed. Okay, sweet dried cranberries. You can eat these on Whole30, which Erin has just been blowing through some of this dry fruit. Just make sure on your dry fruit that it is sweetened with fruit juice. If it's sweetened, not sugar. Cornstarch. Okay, so I have 2 kinds of cocoa, and what has started to happen is, like, I think where I'm buying the cocoa is different. So I'm no longer buying like those little containers that you can get at like Walmart or the grocery store. I started buying it at Costco or through Azure, and the better quality of the cocoa, the darker it actually has ended up being. So I had my cocos confused for a minute. That's okay. So we're trying not to do a giant plume again. So now look at us, just going slow. Now for me, I know that in our big bulk pantry, I do have another pack of cocoa, and whenever I can find these special darks, because for a long time here in Alaska, I couldn't find those, and I really, really like those with cookies and different things. So I just grabbed a couple containers of it. But cocoa is another thing that I probably, I wonder what the expert, do you know like how long cocoa lasts like before it expires? Like I'm just, my brain stumbling through the thoughts here is just like literally thinking that I use so much cocoa, I could probably do a 2-gallon bucket of it for a year. And that's just being like really, really honest. Because one of the kids' favorite, so we do a lot of brownies, a lot of homemade brownies, and then we do a lot of no-bake cookies, and both of those require a lot of cocoa. Cody makes a brookie cookie, which is a brownie and a chocolate chip cookie combined. That blows through a lot of cocoa powder. She made 4 dozen of those the other day. So, cocoa. So while I do the last couple ones, I was gonna talk to you a couple of points. Why decanting? Well, if you don't know what decanting is, it's exactly what we're doing. Now, originally I decanted. When I opened, say, a big package from Azure, and I filled a jar with that. So that's what decanting is. And it's a very, very popular online. And I think part of the reason it's popular is it's aesthetically pleasing. So in my kitchen, having all of the spices in these bulk, almost aggressively bulk ways is aesthetically pleasing to me. Like, I like to see it and look at it. But the real reason behind all of it was, A, it saves space, believe it or not. When you buy spices, if you don't, say, buy everything from the same manufacturer in the same size jars, then it becomes very difficult in your pantry to store those things. The other thing is, because I buy all of these sections in bulk, I would have in my kitchen or my pantry, like, I'll watch a lot of pantry organizing videos, and what you see is people just have like baskets that have all of these different bags in them, whether they're plastic or cardboard bags. And most of these products, like this baking soda I'm fighting with here, the baking soda comes in a big bulk bag for me from Costco. And once it's opened, even though it has like a zipper seal, it's like it gets in that zipper and you can never seal it back up. Well, baking soda is awful to be left open. It's going to absorb the smells around it. You don't want to eat that, especially if you're using it for food. Now, would I care if the baking soda is for like cleaning or something like that? No. But by opening the big package and decanting it by putting it in these jars, I fill 2 jars from that. The one for the pantry that we eat, and then the other one goes in the laundry section, so we might use it on laundry if there's a spill or something we want to clean with it, or in the bathroom for some reason, or so on. So you can use baking soda for a lot of different things, but I don't want it, if I'm going to be eating with it, I don't want it absorbing the smell of the laundry room, so to speak. So that's part of why decanting. The other thing, as far as like those containers go, is from Azure, part of the savings to get really good quality things is packaging. Packaging costs a lot of money. Here's an example. I buy just for Whole30 this Primal Kitchen mayonnaise. It's more expensive, number one, because this is an avocado oil. It doesn't have any sugar or corn oils or those sort of things to it, but it's also in glass, and they quit putting mayonnaise in glass. So the glass is more expensive than the plastic. So that's another thing. So when you get it from Azure, you get it in the paper bags or plastic bags, and once you cut that open, you can't re-seal it. So that is kind of why decanting for me works really well. The aesthetics of it, the storage of it, like I'm able to know exactly how many jars fit per shelf by moving everything into the matching jars. And then I have figured out, and you would have to figure it out for yourself depending on like what size you're doing of different things, of what fits in those jars. And you kind of start to learn, like, say chocolate chips, for example. I'll buy all these different chocolate chips or whatever, but how many bags fit in a half gallon versus a quart, or so on, if you will. And then the last thought on all of that is it's just so easy. It's so easy for me to find what, oh, those are nice. So those are a little bit dried out. So So I'm gonna leave these nice moist ones all together and get these jars resealed. And then hopefully we can work through these. Dates are such a good sweet snack when you can't have sugar. So I have some dried fruit here, and then nuts. Nuts need to go. I just looked in the pantry. These are all the almonds that are left in the entire house. So they're gonna go up here, and they're going to go on the shopping list. And then I had to get these the other day at the local grocery store, even though it's the Costco brand. I am out of pecans, except for this as well. So I'm gonna put them in a clean jar. So as far as nuts go, in my big pantry, my overflow pantry, when we restock that, which we're gonna have to do some shopping to restock that, I keep almonds, pecans, walnuts, and peanuts. Yeah. And the rest of them, so I'll keep a half gallon out of the nuts and then refill these, but oftentimes if I'm doing something with the nuts, we will just grab the whole half gallon from out of there, and then the rest of the nuts I actually store in the freezer. But after the holidays, we're always super low. So what I have found personally, financially, as we go to Costco or I order from Azure, if I just buy nuts throughout the year, store them in the freezer, when the holiday season comes, I am able to have a really wide variety of nuts and not be spending all of that money in the month of December. So let me put these up, and then I'm gonna walk you through what I actually keep in the kitchen, and then we'll close out. So here's what we got done today. So as far as this baking section goes, the way I lined up the jars, I have a huge amount of space right here that can become something. I'm going to take some time and think about, what do I want that to become? I already walked you through what all of this is. The only other additional things that I keep in the kitchen are vanilla. This is some Azure vanilla, but I have a bunch of homemade vanillas. This is chagra, it's a mushroom tea. And then that's another one. This is some bee pollen. Bee pollen I can have on Whole30. And then back there is some honey, some Alaskan grown honey. So that is what is in that section. When we move over here, normally these two jars that I do need to refill, and I'll show you the big quantities I have in the other pantry when we do that. But normally that's avocado oil and apple cider vinegar. In here is salt, pepper. I keep a tiny bit of yeast out at room temperature. I just think it rises better. The rest of it I keep in the freezer. And then out here I keep a little bit of vinegar. What is that? Balsamic vinegar. Okay, let's say what spices are here. Okay, the spices that I use on a regular basis, but maybe not daily, that I wouldn't just reach up and grab and I can kind of walk over for: onion flakes, ground mustard. I moved the ginger over here. These are dried jalapenos, dried green chilies, and then oregano is behind it. Sweet basil, bay leaves, and Italian seasoning blend. Parsley, thyme, and rosemary. So those go there. And then over here, these are the spices that I use constantly. So cinnamon, to me, I don't know why this doesn't go in the baking section. We've discussed this before, but it doesn't. Cinnamon just goes by my everyday spices. Cinnamon, paprika, chili powder. So I added a few out here that we were going to the pantry constantly and getting, and thought, okay, they need to just live out here for a little while. I may change my mind on that again later, but I get to do that. Hot chili powder, cumin, and onion powder. Rancher's steak rub, some kosher salt, And then the black peppercorns, red chili pepper flakes, everything bagel, and then the Celtic salt. And then the last section is garlic salt, the jalapeno salt, and garlic powder. So those are the spices I keep out here. I have a lot of other spices in smaller quantities in the pantry, and we'll go through that someday, like I keep promising you soon. And then over here, I keep white vinegar. This needs refilled as well while it's still down. And then a neutral flavor oil, a vegetable oil, grapeseed oil, whatever. Or a lot of times that's actually olive oil and then avocado oil. So I just kind of rotate and change out the oils as I please around here. So that is it. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope that you enjoyed something. Maybe you cleaned along with me. We have a long way to go in this kitchen, and I would love to continue to share with you what goes into our homestead and what is required. Food and the kitchen are such a big part of a homestead. And so taking my time and going through this really is a good thing. So thank you for joining me today. My gratitude for the day is I've just really enjoyed my time with you. I was really blessed by the sunshine coming through the windows and the happiness and joy that brought me. I hope that you find something to be grateful for today. God bless each and every one of you. Until next time, I will see you back here in my kitchen. Thanks, guys.